Hey, I'm W. Earl Brown. You know, that guy from that thing. You know, him, that's me. You're listening to Movie Meltdown.
What's up, and welcome to Movie Meltdown's Unsung Cinema. I'm Brian, and in this series, I welcome a guest to discuss their involvement in film, and then we round out the episode talking about a movie that they enjoy, but maybe it doesn't get the respect that it deserves. And in this episode, I'm talking with Garret Dillahunt, an actor who I'm willing to bet you've seen in a lot of different projects over the years. You may know him from TV, on series as diverse as Deadwood to Raising Hope. And by the way, we'll mostly be discussing movies on this episode, but I do have to say, his portrayal of Bert on Raising Hope is nothing short of brilliant. If you didn't catch it when it was originally on, definitely go check it out. But as I said, we'll be focusing more on Garret's film career here, and over the years he's worked with a wide array of filmmakers, from the Coen brothers to Rian Johnson, from Zack Snyder to Michael Bay. And in each performance, he continues to showcase this amazing range of characters. Regardless of visual style and different tone that's thrown at him, whatever the movie is, it's always an improvement when you add Garret to the bill. So we'll only be able to scratch the surface on all of his roles over the years, but that's because we want to leave time to discuss Garret's movie choice. And this one definitely fits the theme of our show. Because how a movie that stars Gene Hackman and Al Pacino has managed to stay off most people's radar is very strange. The movie is Scarecrow, and it was released in the 70s right in the middle of both performers becoming two of the most influential actors in Hollywood. And yet, outside of hardcore cinephile circles, I never hear it discussed. But this episode will do what we can to remedy that. So with that, we've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get right to it as we talk with Garret Dillahunt. I usually start at the beginning and just try to get a sense of how people got into this and where they started. So you didn't really grow up in California. Was it Washington?
Yeah, I grew up in Washington State. I was born in California, the Bay Area. My father was a trucker and moved a lot for work. Three boys. I have two brothers, and we all were born in different states. So we left California. We lived a few different places in California, and I left there in third grade and got to where I think of as my childhood home kind of by mid-fourth grade in Washington State.
I guess if you were doing a lot, was that okay? I know with some kids that would be sort of traumatic, but if you did it a lot, I guess you got used to it.
I guess. I mean, you're a kid. You don't know what's weird or not.
Yeah.
It's just this is where we moved. I don't recall if it was hard or not, or I was always kind of shy, so it wasn't. I don't. I feel like I'd be lying if I said, like, yeah, it was so hard and I had to be the class clown in order to make. I mean, I just didn't do any of that stuff. We just moved, and
yeah,
that's what we did.
Well, and then what were you interested in that young? Was there already artistic stuff, or was it just kind of what was going on as a kid?
I don't know. I mean, I always liked to draw. I thought I was going to be a cartoonist someday. I liked reading. I started reading really early. Started school when I was 4. I think mainly because I was just a pain in the ass, and my mom was like, please take this kid for at least part of the day because he's burning through the workbooks I get him. I'm a curious kid, and My Elephant Book, I think, was my first book I read, and I've never stopped reading. I always have books and collected comic books and drew comic books and, pretty typical nerd kid.
Oh, yeah. That was most of my childhood.
Yeah, right. Aren't you glad now?
Definitely. It's certainly led to where I am, and that's, I guess, with you too. Was there stuff you were watching at that point? Did movies already kind of kick in that early, or did that come later?
I enjoyed them, I'm sure. I don't remember what I was watching in third and fourth grade. I liked, Disney stuff. That used to be how I'd blow out my candles on my birthday. My wish would be to see every Disney animated movie ever made, because I thought that's what I'm going to do someday. And I know by 7th grade or 6th grade, I'd sent some cartoons to Disney that I'd drawn. and this is a testament to the difference in the times because I don't know that anyone would take this time anymore. But I got a letter back from them
Wow.
with
That's
my drawings returned, and a nice letter saying, like, we're so thrilled you reached out to us, and yada yada. It's hard for us to evaluate a young artist's work when he copies other artists, because I would just go to a cartooning book and draw them. And he's like, please, create your own characters, keep studying, try different things. And sent me tickets to the movie that was out at the time, which was, I think, Ride a Wild Pony, it was called, which was pretty nice.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing, and that's
Yeah.
part of one of the ones I keep returning to too. Is like how different the industry is as you go
Yeah.
along your journey, but especially like looking at the way things are today. It's so
Yeah.
drastically different. But also like looking back, like that far back, you would have a hard time even knowing where to send it to. Like in a way, kids now at least have
Yeah.
access to find things, but like back then, it's like where would you even come up with the address to send that stuff in? So that's a whole
Yeah. I
different
guess
world.
I don't even remember it being very hard, even. I don't remember where we did. We just looked up the address, I guess, wow, like not on the computer, in a phone book or something. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
so crazy. Because yeah, I think back that far back, like it was we were so disconnected from the rest of the world. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Well, then I guess when did performing come into play? Was it anything that young, or was it further on?
Yeah, I never really had. I mean, I think back and I realized that I did plays like at church or in sixth or seventh grade. We did like Pee Wee's Schoolhouse or something, some small thing, but it was never like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this. I was painfully shy. I never did any plays in high school or anything like that. My brother did a few musicals. My older brother was very musically inclined, and I just couldn't imagine doing that. It just seemed terrifying to get up in front of the whole school, you know?
That
And
was pretty much where I was too. Yeah.
yeah, it was not at all on my radar. I was going to be a cartoonist for a while. Then I decided I was going to be a journalist because I really enjoyed working on the school newspaper. I'm kind of a hot shot on the paper and fancied myself, Lou Grant or something. And it was very romantic to me. And I thought, this would be a great life.
I mean, you eventually kind of pursued that. Do you think that would have gone well if you went into journalism?
I don't know. I mean, it's changed just as much as my business has. AI and the internet has not been kind to journalism.
Yeah, there's not much of a market for it now, really.
Yeah,
Not
it's not really
in
journalism in
traditional.
the same way. It doesn't feel brave. It feels like you're deciding to be a servant to some master or another. And how do I get eyes? And what can I write that's the most clickbaity? And I'm sure a lot of journalists are very frustrated
Well, and
these days.
they've crossed over too. It's like it's rare that anybody just does print now. Like you
Oh
have to
yeah.
be on video. You have to be
Oh yeah,
content
yeah.
creating one way or another. So you couldn't even do print journalism, or very
No,
rarely
that
anymore.
that romance is gone. I worked for a paper for a while, and it was just so wonderful. Just to go out and do a story, and you got your own cameraman because it was a small town paper, and then you take a negative of the entire page and develop that, and that's what they're printed off of. It's just the romance of that is gone.
It's a
Um,
lost art form. I mean, nobody even
yeah,
knows how to do that anymore.
yeah, it's true.
So I guess is it all the way to like college before plays or anything
Yeah,
happened?
yeah. I went to school to study journalism. I went to University of Washington in Seattle, which was the big city where I was from. I'm from a little town called Yakima, which is a agricultural community. A lot of apples, hops, cherries. My father was in the trucking industry, and so that's why we moved around so much, and that's where he settled, and that's what the companies he worked for hauled was fruit, basically, and stuff like that. And so I went to school for journalism, but my my last year of high school, my older brother was tragically killed in a drunk driving accident, which my normal weird little family um, was kind of thrown for a loop
Yeah,
by that.
definitely.
And I'm in college now and sort of following the plan I had, but my heart's not really in it anymore. So I just kind of drifted. I just kind of drifted through. And but But anyway, sorry, it's I don't mean it to be maudlin, and it comes up in interviews a lot. Like, how'd you get started? And so I was like, well, here's the depressing part,
Yeah,
but
it's, I mean, but that
but
changes
part of
you. I mean,
yeah, and part of that requirement of the playwriting course was to take an acting class so that you knew what you were writing for. Kind of, you had a little inkling of what was required by the actors and how to write better for that. In fact, how to make your plays actor proof. The proper use of stage direction or indication of what you feel the characters should be feeling or going through at a certain time. And I was mortified at the thought of this acting class. I did not relish the thought of getting up in front of my classmates and just humiliating myself. I didn't feel, being a year young for my grade through grade school anyway was just, I'm smaller than everyone for most of the time.
you're always
Uh,
different than
you're
everyone.
shy. Yeah, the
Yeah.
girls forget it. You're not getting a date, and so you internalize these things. You think this is who you are. This is how it's always going to be. And so I was just, really shy. But lo and behold, and as nervous as I would get, when I hit the stage, I just felt completely and oddly freed in the skin of somebody else. Um, and I realized that this is exactly what I needed because I just didn't want to be me. I was angry. I was hurt. I didn't know what I wanted to do because I had just learned that life is short and can be taken from you at any moment. And I was like, well, damn, I don't want to do something I don't enjoy. Uh, and it became real therapy for me. And I just threw myself into it. I was doing scene work for my own class. I would do audition for productions. I would do scenes for the directing students. I was just going all over campus, you know, all day, all night, just nonstop, just playing as many different people as I could and really trying to immerse myself in those people. And I didn't know that I'm training myself for a career. I didn't know that I was solidifying habits or preferences. I just knew I didn't want to be me, and I wanted to be as far from me as possible. And I could say all these great words from all these super intelligent people who are much better writers than I was. So I always knew what to say. I was never fumbling for words because they were right here. It was fantastic. I'm grateful for those times because I'm still kind of doing the same thing, just with less discomfort about who I am. But it is also interesting to think about how you solidify habits. How just like ingesting and internalizing that I was not worthy of a girlfriend, or that I was going to be small, that I'm shy, that no one wants to hear from you, is a mistake. It's just as much of a mistake in a way to just think, because I had no thought about the business end of things. I didn't think about like educating myself for the business of this. I just knew that I'd do anything, anywhere, anytime, any kind of character. Give it to me, I can do it, and that's a great thing, but it becomes an obstacle at a certain point in your career.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot to kind of take on at that point, and then I mean I
Yeah,
guess that also just sort of builds you up. Like as you keep doing it, you also get a little better at it each time, and it gives you a little
exactly.
more confidence, even if you don't realize it at the moment. It
Yeah.
well then I guess what made you flip the switch of like, oh well, now I might need a career? Like, were you still assuming you were going to try to do journalism, or was it going to
No,
lead to a different job?
this upended all my plans because I was like, I'm an actor. This is what I'm going to do. And big shock to the family as well. It's not a huge leap from journalism. Not like journalism is super lucrative for most people, so it wasn't like, but it was just a shock that little shy Garrett wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And so I found it my last year of school, I was like, well, no, I guess I'm out, and I stayed and I worked. There was a guy named Bob Hobbs who used to run the graduate acting program at University of Washington. And right when I was there was this whole sort of coup, and he was ousted as the department head of the graduate acting program. Like Kyle MacLachlan went there.
Oh yeah.
A lot of pretty great actors. Patrick Duffy, came through UW at the time, and he was their teacher.
Hmm.
Um, so they brought in this new guy, and Bob was kind of, because he had one more year of his contract. He taught undergrads for 1 year, and it was a very rigorous audition process, and a handful of us got in, and so we became this sort of de facto, him thumbing his nose at the university brass for ousting him, and so he sort of worked us real Calvinistic approach to acting, and he just worked us to death, and we sort of became this sort of unspoken competition to the new grad program. It was like, well, I'm going to take these undergrads and mold them into this incredible whatever. But it was very good news for me because I just got like this incredible teacher very early on, and he got me ready to go out in the world. And I acted around Seattle for a year. Realized I didn't really know what I was doing still, so I decided to go to grad school. So I crashed the auditions for grad school in San Francisco, and I got into a few programs.
Does the schooling, I mean, obviously you stuck with it, so I guess that, because some people just seem like they throw themselves in it
Yeah.
without any training, and like, so I guess it was instrumental for you.
Yeah, I don't think everybody needs training, although I think you do better with some training.
Definitely, yeah.
Whether that's a conservatory program or not, it's up to you. But I think class is beneficial, just someplace to practice. You can't just go in and wing it. Um, I think that's why there was like a lot of British actors that come over here are just so much more facile and comfortable with language and really good at they have a real solid technique, and it's why a lot of people hire them, and why they come over here to work. And I think that's a better idea than just showing up and winging it and just being like, I don't know, man, I'm just gonna wing it.
It builds those good habits that at least then you know how to get
Yeah,
yourself into the process versus just showing up. Yeah, yeah.
I think so. But like I say, not everybody benefits from training. I was so green that it was a great idea for me. I walked into a place, NYU is the place I chose just because I'd never been east of Montana. That was my logic. I walked into a place that, you got 15, people waiting to work with you. You got a whole staff. It was a very welcoming experience. If you're going to move to someplace like New York, to have a place to go, to practice every day and get better and perform. And then eventually agents come to the shows. And, for me, it was a fairly quick, I had an agent by my second year, and it was like, geez, I just started acting 2.5 years ago. It was really good for me. And I have real fond memories of the place, and stay in touch with my teachers who are still alive from those days, and it was great. It was great. A great place to go fail, you know.
That's part of it. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, then was the transition to film an easy one? Because that's a different process too, is having to work to the camera versus an audience.
Yeah, I mean, I'd always been accused of being small anyway. I have a sort of small and detailed kind of work, which doesn't often work well for stage. So in a way, I think I'm better suited to film and TV.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a ton of film training at the time. Their prevailing theory was it's the same thing. You don't need it. It just be a little more precise, be a little smaller. But I always use the word smaller, which I didn't need to worry about because that's what I always did anyway. But that's not totally true. It would have been great to have had some film and TV training, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying before about having no real business plan for myself. All I wanted to do was play different characters. That's all I wanted to do. The farther from me, the better. It was therapy, sure, at least for a while, but then it becomes a challenge. Like, you don't think I can do that? Well, watch me do it, and unfortunately, that's not a great business plan. I didn't even know because people don't know what to do with you, especially when you're young, you know.
Yeah.
As I got older, that becomes your pigeonhole. Oh, you're the guy that can do anything, and even if you can't do everything, you let them think that, and you're like, yeah, that's me. I can do anything.
If you're convinced you can do it, then you're at least in
Exactly.
the door,
But early on, they're looking for one thing. Most movie stars, they do the same thing over and over again. It's comforting. It sells tickets. If you go in and you're like, oh my God, is that the same guy? Like that doesn't sell a ton of tickets. It's impressive to your friends, but it's what I liked.
It is true. Like you just kind of looking over your different roles over the years. It's like it's a very chameleon quality of like you can be entirely different characters. I mean, which in general is what you're supposed to do. But like some
Yeah.
people aren't that good at it, whereas you just are completely different from one role to the next.
And I don't know if it's ability or opportunity. That's the opportunity I've had. I look all right. I'm no Robert Redford, so maybe I was never going to be, the one that all the girls want. But I didn't try. I didn't even. I just didn't. I didn't buy that either. Like no girls ever liked me, so why would that change in the movies? Or you just don't know. You just don't. You don't know yourself well. And I just did theater about 7 or 8 years, pretty solid right out of school. I didn't even think about film or TV, and I just got hungry one day. I just was like tired of living check to check and job to job and digging myself out of the hole every job and then slipping back in between jobs. And I was like, maybe I should do some film or TV or something.
I think that's what leads a lot of performers.
Yeah, it's just like, why did I wait so long? Like you could have. I wish I would have mixed it up a little more earlier
Yeah.
on instead
Yeah.
of just sort of. I've always been a little bit cork in the ocean about my career. I just feel like, well, whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. Like, I guess I'm gonna live here for a year. Where's this place? Okay, and I've always had a lot of envy and admiration for people that kind of plot their course or like, this is what I'm gonna do and here's how I'm gonna do it. And I'm just like, wow, you can do that? Oh, I guess you can. Shoot, I should have done that. Now it's too late or whatever. But I still feel that way. So
Yeah, but I mean,
here
it
we
turns
are.
out differently. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily. There's so many kids you see that are immersed in it so early on that they don't even know a different option, and then sometimes it totally backfires, and they have shot
For
themselves in the
sure.
foot as they get into their careers. So
Yeah, there's no template for sure.
no, yeah.
But a lot of things that I find, I don't know if everyone else feels this way, and then they might in other professions. Like at the lowest times, you compare yourself to people, which is the worst thing you can do, and you realize, oh, I could have done something a little different here, or if I'd have made a different choice there, it might have spawned this thing I say I want now, and you don't have. And you can't spend too much time looking back, but I think it might be important every once in a while to look back and learn. You
Yeah,
know,
well, in
not
general, we need to do that as people. We don't always,
yeah,
but
to not just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again.
definitely. Well, I wanted to hit a few movies. I know
Oh,
there's
sure.
again, you have so many. It's kind of hard to pick. I think I've just thrown out a few that were like very different and bigger directors to work with. So, I mean, I guess just the fact that you worked with the Coen brothers is kind of amazing. So how was it being on that set and how did they work that, was different than what you'd seen up to that point or since, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm in New York at the moment, and I just was walking by the building that I don't think is their offices anymore, but it was then. And I remember walking into it to audition for No Country for the first time. Um, they're great guys. I wish I knew them better and had worked with them more. But they're very specific and eclectic in their own taste and their own desires for the kinds of movie they make. They make all different kinds of movies, which is
I think
amazing.
confusing for audiences sometimes.
Yeah, but it's also like, hey, how rich do you need to be? And also, what interests you? I'm pretty sure they feel like they've got a fine life. They've had some amazing experiences, and they want to do the things that interest them instead of
Yeah.
chasing, current fads or whatever. I don't know. Maybe they're kicking themselves and wishing they were directing big blockbusters or something. But I don't know. I've always been drawn to that kind of person.
Yeah.
And I was a huge fan of Cormac McCarthy's writing, so I was determined at the time to do every Cormac McCarthy adaptation ever made. And I got in two of them. but that's it so far.
They seem so detail oriented. Was it different on the set of them trying to focus on specifics, or was it just kind of your normal
No,
performance?
no, I don't know if it was normal at all, but it's just a very wonderful atmosphere that they create, and I'm assuming they do it on purpose. But what was bizarre, and I was talking to Richard Deakins about this on his podcast. They storyboard heavily. They they have a plan. They know what every shot's going to be, but I never felt like that.
That's kind of impressive that they're still working within that framework, but they're letting you
Yeah.
do what you need to do.
Oh, and I think I called him Richard by mistake. Roger, of course. I worked with twice that same year on No Country and Jesse James.
Yeah.
Just humongous fan of that guy, and really fun to be around. But I would do something very organically. I felt like, what do you want to do here? I never recall them saying, "This is where you're going to go." They just say, "You're going to go up to the door." I'm like, "Okay," and I'd say, "I think I do this," and they'd be like, "Okay, great." And then you see the storyboard, and you've done exactly what they drew somehow. And I don't ever recall feeling tricked or being ordered to do something. Roger's really calm. He feels like a real, third scene partner in a scene. Just him and his camera are so somehow benevolent and unobtrusive at the same time, like the most loving observer you're gonna get. And it was just a wonderful experience. I auditioned several times for Moss. Every time they had Josh Brolin wasn't the first choice. No, wasn't the first offer, I should say. Um, I think Heath Ledger was in there for a while, and it was too much like broke back for him. And for some reason or other, him, Joaquin, other people would fall out, and they would see me sort of, and other people too, between. And it just became apparent that I'm just not famous enough. You need someone with a little bit of juice to
Just
help
too
to help
early
them
on. Give
sell
it
it,
time.
to help them sell the movie. Which makes sense. And so they gave me this. They gave me this other part, which was a fine part and a fun part. And I got to hang with Tommy Lee and them, and who's also a director in his own right, Tommy. So I felt very well taken care of, and very much over my head in some ways, but also right at home. I wish I'd fit into some of their other movies that they've made. But
Yeah, they're supposed to be coming back together, so hopefully, yeah, we
we'll
can see the
see.
brothers back together again. Well, and you mentioned Jesse James. You've got a lot even around that time that are super heavy material. Like sometimes I'm watching some of these. I'm like, did they just call you in for the darkest parts of the story? Like, we just need this guy to ride a horse and get shot. It's like, is it almost overwhelming? Some of the darker material that gets thrown at you, or is it just part of what you did?
I've never been one to like internalize the part. Maybe my wife would disagree, but I never feel that affected. I think it's important to put it away and go home. And I like that demonstration of craft that you can click in and out of it at will. I like that. Some of the heaviest stuff is the most goofy between takes, I think, to sort of alleviate some of that tension. For me, some of these experiences, like it's always about like my own fear about not having work. Uh, Deadwood had just ended. I think I was one of the few guys in Hollywood that had a beard at the time. It wasn't as in as it is now to have a beard. And I thought, will I ever work again? Will I ever work again? Deadwood was such a mountaintop experience. And I auditioned for this pilot called Book of Daniel, in which I would play Jesus Christ, like literally Jesus Christ in robes.
That's
Uh,
a lot to deal with.
yeah, and I got it. It's Aidan Quinn, this great cast, but doomed from the start. And the pilot wasn't picked up. So thankfully, and then I went through a rigorous audition process for Andrew Dominic for Jesse James, and I got the role of Charlie Ford. because I kind of look like the ugly Affleck brother. I could be one of the some like mongoloid cousin or something.
I'm not buying any of this, but
But then the pilot resurfaced, and it was the exact same shooting dates as it. And we tried everything to get out because it's to this day one of the best roles I've ever been cast in on film. Like it's a wonderful part. Like just
yeah, yeah,
goes all over the place. And they just couldn't do it. They're like, he's in every scene. He's Jesus Christ. He's a figment of this guy's imagination. Brad Pitt offered to do a guest spot for them if they would work around it and let me play this part, and they just couldn't do it. I don't think Brad had done television at the time, which just boggles my mind that they'd say no to that. But regardless, and everyone's nice people here. They didn't know everything was going to go to shit. But so they cast me as in a different part in Jesse James as Ed Miller. A much smaller part, and we got Sam Rockwell to take over Charlie. So that's kind of one of those things I'm talking about, just this sort of cork in the ocean way, and not giving in to fear. Things you wish you'd done differently. If I'd have just been a little more patient and believed in myself a little more, I wouldn't have been so desperate to take any job that came my way. And
yeah.
and and after a while of that kind of thing happening, or you're just taking whatever work comes your way, then you run the risk of being unavailable for a lot of things that are better, or you run the risk of pigeonholing yourself in the eyes of you know the industry to be somehow less serious or somehow less worthy of more responsibility. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, yeah,
So Jesse James conjures up all kinds of memories for me, is my point. Most of it
yeah.
being regret, but also thrilled that I could be a part of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just there's so much. There's only so much you can do. Sometimes things happen, and as you're saying, you're just kind of learning and to go with it and make the best of it. And when you're that committed to it, yeah, I mean, it still comes through. And
Yeah.
another one around that time, though, Last House on the Left. I've always been so impressed because the way that story originally was, it's making such a small change, really, in the specifics of how it went from the old version, and like it just adds such a layer to it. But that is just so dark. Like it gets so.
Which changes that? What's the different
Well,
part
again, I guess
in your mind?
no spoilers, but to me, the minor adjustment from a plot point is not killing off their daughter, and like
Right,
that.
right.
I feel like completely changes the motivation of the parents, because you
Yeah.
can't, like, if you watch the West version, it's like they don't really care anymore. Like you can't, like you've lost the only thing that matters to them. So at this point, it's just revenge at any
Right.
cost. If it takes me out in the process, who cares? I just want
Sure.
revenge. Where you don't have that in the remake. Like they need to be there for their daughter, but also there's just vengeance now. So it's I feel like that's such an interesting move that got thrown in there that makes it almost an entirely different story.
Yeah, I mean, both movies are remakes of the Virgin Springs,
Yeah.
which is weirdly. I mean, it's horror. Like the attack is horrifying in that movie, and how the kid sort of shovels that handful of dirt on the dead girl's face to hide it because he can't take her sort of looking at him, and then she's just this pale corpse with this obscured face with mud on it. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And then also the Vietnam War. I mean, the first one was kind of a response to the Vietnam War. Like the audience response was so different between the two. Like it was horror.
Yeah.
In Wes's show, that the parents had sunk to the same level. Like that was not a good move. That was like, oh no, like they now everyone's lost.
Yeah, it just
And in
seems so
ours,
hopeless in that first one.
yeah,
Yeah.
in our version, it's people are cheering, like they're tearing the roof down for the parents to give back a little bit, and it was really interesting sort of difference in the in the audience and the sign of the times and all that. It's really interesting, but Yeah, but I thought for a remake, I thought other than the ending, I thought we made a really good one. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, especially they were doing a lot of remakes at that time, and I think it maybe gets swept up with some of those others. But I think it's such an interesting take on the story. Well, I was jumping ahead a few years, but again, mostly for drastically different types of films. Still kind of horror, I guess. I recently was rewatching Army of the Dead.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Zack Snyder has such a distinctive visual style. Like, how different is it being on that set and the way that he sort of runs things?
I loved it. I, I don't know if he likes me or not. I hope so, but I sure liked him. I just dig how much he loves movies. Um, there's a big group of people, a lot of egos he had to manage. Um, but
And
I
not
knew it was
his.
gonna. What?
Said not his. Was he not in there in the ego department?
Well, I'm sure he's got a healthy ego. I think he's a confident guy, but
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I didn't. It didn't feel in any way unhealthy to me. I just liked him a lot.
Yeah.
He seems fair. He seems kind in his way. He's a really good athlete. And that would get frustrating sometimes. Because he'd be like, then like, what if you come over here and you just kind of you do this, and then I don't know, maybe toss this thing over here, and whatever he would say, he would just accomplish like immediately. Like I was just like, okay, dude, can you? Because then I would take like 5 takes to get it right, because I would miss, or I would throw it in the wrong spot, or like close but not quite, up close but not quite, and so he was intimidating that way. That he was so much more capable than, and I sort of fancy myself a good athlete. But I really like him, and I hope I get a chance to work with him again. I haven't seen him since those times, but it was a fun shoot for me. I dug it.
When you mentioned the big cast, that was one of the, I remember kind of wanting to rewatch it because that's one of those earlier for Ella Purnell that's like before she just had such a run recently. Do you remember on set? This is kind of what I was watching because I feel that even as an audience member, sometimes you just see somebody kind of hit their stride and like you see them sort of come into their own as an actor and sort of career wise. So I don't know, did you feel like, or even just in general watching like people coming up over the years that like you can catch a performance and be like, this kid, something about this kid.
I think you can smell it on people. I was fortunate to be like I was in Ryan Gosling's sort of big breakout role, the believer.
Yeah.
No one knew who Ryan Gosling was outside of television. I don't know if it was his first film, but it was one of them. That was like 2001. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, Jennifer Lawrence's first film, and Winter's Bone, kind of put
Yeah.
her on the
That
map.
that was one I was thinking of too. Like that was like an
Yeah,
announcement of her. Yeah.
and there's a reason that someone was like, this kid's gonna head this movie. This girl, I think there's something special about her, and it's wild to see. It's wild to work with people who are the leads of the movie, and they'll say things like, "Oh, we studied you in acting class," and I'm like, "You did? Well, shit. And what did I do wrong?" Or it's just amazing that time can pass that way, or and Ella, I just think she's amazing. She's got these Betty Davis eyes, and when you meet someone and they don't seem to have any awareness of their sort of timeless beauty, say, or and she's got great sense of humor, and she's a good hang, like she could hang with anybody and just sit around and shoot the shit. And you know I liked her. She talked about a review one time where some play she'd done, and the reviewer was mean to her and said, with the eye to face ratio of a squid.
Wow. That is
And
uncalled for.
yeah, and also just like, are you insane? Like this is one of the most amazing features about it. So I just called her my little squid the rest of the time, but just to take the power away. But
Definitely, because
I,
she's
I,
gorgeous. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, but it's amazing to me to meet young people that are unaware of these things, and you can't really say it. You can't talk to someone and be like, "Oh, you're so gorgeous."
Yeah. That
It's
then it's just
creepy.
creepy. Yeah. Yeah.
but you want to reassure them. You want to be like, I don't know what mirror you're looking in, but this is not an obstacle you need to worry about. You need to do whatever work you need to do, sure, but you're going to do great things, and it's really fun to see, you know, what happens with people that you sort of cross paths with. I remember Aaron Paul in Last House. I was like, "What are you doing this?" He's like, "Well, I'm doing this pilot thing. I don't know. It's kind of weird. What's it called? Breaking Bad."
And we
And
never heard of that again.
I know, but it's just like, wow, like you just don't know sometimes. You just don't know what's gonna pop and what isn't. What's gonna grab the zeitgeist.
And it can kick in so fast, like within a
Yeah,
couple of
and that's
years. It's just
yeah, and that's freeing
crazy.
in a lot of ways. It's like, well, I can't. I've been parts of many things that are like, oh my God, this is the one. This is gonna blow them out of the water, and then it's like it just doesn't even register, and then things you pass on that become monstrous, or little things you do that you're like, oh, no one will ever see this. You're like, oh, this is a massive. Like we did this indie film called Any Day Now. Great director, young director named Travis Fine. Me and Alan Cumming
Yeah,
are the
yeah.
leads in it, right? And it's a semi-true story about these two guys in the 70s. Alan's very out and proud. My guy's closeted and comes out, falls in love with Alan. And we decided we were going to try to raise this sort of homeless uh, boy with Down syndrome. And the courts won't let us keep him. It's his whole sort of tragedy, and he has to go back to his birth mom who has a drug problem, and kid dies, spoiler alert. But, you know, it was a wonderful movie, and it won all the audience awards at every festival it went to. It was a tearjerker. And then in Japan, they changed the name to Chocolate Donut because the boy loved chocolate donuts. Lines around the block to see this thing. People coming with boxes of Kleenex, knowing they're going to and wanting to cry about it, and they made a stage play about it, like a stage musical about it. Like they loved this thing so much, and it was just this so low budget indie. We're living in honey wagons while we make it. We have the worst wigs you've ever seen. There was no money for anything, but everybody gave 100%. And it was just like, I mean, who would have thought, that this would speak to a Japanese audience so
It's such a different
intensely,
culture. Yeah, you can never tell like what
you don't
kicks
know,
in different places and
or just
catches
or
on.
just what project is gonna grab people by the heart. It's almost like the stock market. It depends on geopolitics and like the other things happening in the world about what's gonna grow and what's gonna die. It's weird.
Well, that was yeah. I was in the unsung cinema vein. I was going to ask. So that's one. What's another one that's you've done over the years that is really in your mind really good and just hasn't really caught on that people should probably go find?
I don't know. I'm really proud of this movie called Oliver Sherman.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was
with
watching part of that this week. Yeah, that's
young,
another. It's pretty serious.
yeah, it is. Great young directors. I don't think he's directed since. Ryan Redford. Is a very unique, exacting personality, um, and I wish he would. I think he's a great writer and a very sensitive touch. But I'm just really proud of it. As a sort of small piece, I think it just really works. It's Canadian. I got nominated for a Genie Award back in the day when those existed, like the Canadian sort of Oscars. I mean, awards are kind of silly, but it was nice to be there and,
Yeah,
competing with Viggo Mortensen, and you're like, hey. But I'm real proud of it. And, I've got a lot of things like that. Ever since Deadwood, I try to make everything into Deadwood. Everyone on that show just tries to recreate that experience. It was just such a wonderful, creative time. Um, So I guess that's why we're dissatisfied because there's no way you can recreate that, and especially in today's world. There just isn't the time. No one's going to be that patient.
yeah. That was. I just recently was talking to W.O. Brown, and he
Mm.
was kind of that same thing. They're trying to recreate that scene on The Mandalorian now. So it's like them in alien makeup trying to deliver, cocksucker lines back and forth. So he had the same response.
It's funny, man. This life is funny.
Well, I definitely wanted to get to that's sort of the focus of it eventually is come around and find a movie that you also feel people need to go out there and find and one that you've been attached to over the years. So I will give the breakdown here for your choice.
Oh, all right, sure.
Let's see. Our unsung cinema feature is Scarecrow. The year is 1973. The director is Jerry, is it Schwatzberg? I'm not
Schatzberg, I think. Yeah.
And the plot, according to IMDb, which is usually questionable, an ex-con drifter and with a perchance for brawling is amused by a homeless... Yeah, that is how it phrases it. Is amused by a homeless ex-sailor, so they partner as they head east together. Awkwardly worded. So, spoiler alert, we're going to ruin the hell out of this. So, hopefully you've already gone and watched it by now, because this is one of those, and that's why I was glad you threw it out there. This is one I've heard of for years. I actually listen to a show, and I swear every 2 months he will bring up Scarecrow as like such a movie that like he just keeps going back to and just going back to that well. And I was like, I have to watch this. And then I was like, okay, well, this is the excuse. We definitely should discuss that. So I guess my question for you is, what's your history with this movie and when you first saw it and what was your first impression of it?
Well, like I get why it's not some people's cup of tea, and maybe especially today, but it just opens so beautifully. I'm sure is what hooked me at first. I don't know if you saw it, but the opening shot,
the visual, just that him walking down the hill is amazing. Like from the get go,
in this sort of stormy sky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the time they take. It's also a moment in time where there's some scenes in this that feel a little bit actor classy. You know what I mean? It's just, they might go on a tiny bit too long, and you're pretty sure that a good percentage of this is improvised or added to. But everyone's just so good. I mean, you got Al Pacino had just filmed Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
Gene Hackman had just done French Connection. And I'm not sure if they were released yet or they were just released. So they got these two sort of newly minted
like we were talking about, people not knowing what they're about to walk into in the rest of their career. Like,
yeah, and they're going to be staples on your screen till the days they die. It's weird looking back, knowing the sort of awfulness that I just can't stop thinking about it. The way Gene Hackman's last days were. So strange and bizarre and sad, and you're just like, oh Jesus, like this is that guy. The DP, the DP shot McCabe and Mrs. Miller. He shot Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Deliverance, The Deer Hunter.
It's going down the list.
It's amazing. It's insane that
every director, it's De Palma, Spielberg, Robert Altman.
And he shot these iconic things, and he shot this little sort of character study that just is a spiral into tragedy and sort of sadness. But these two guys just in the middle of nowhere, both trying to thumb a ride, end up, sort of buddies. And I was just re-showing my wife the scene in the prison. They get tossed into a work camp, which is just for a month or so, and Pacino's character is sort of an innocent, who thinks he's a joker and fancies himself funny. And we know those guys that they aren't even really that funny, but they just try so hard.
It's how they deal with things. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gene Hackman, like even in an opening scene, he crawls through that barbed wire fence and he kind of gets hung up on it, and he looks back at the fence like he's about to kick the shit out of it, like it was personal.
He's pissed at the fence.
He slides down that embankment and then looks at the embankment like this. I'm like, should I take the time to kick the shit out of this embankment? Or trip? I mean, they just move through the world so differently, and they end up sort of quickly becoming pals. And that scene in the prison where Al just doesn't seem, Francis Lionel, Lion, they call him in the movie, just doesn't read the danger he's in from another inmate. Just doesn't read it.
Which you should know, because Richard Lynch is always creepy.
And this was
he did so many movies. He's always the bad guy.
And this was his first film, by the way.
That's amazing, because he's already got that presence as soon as he's in the
Eileen
screen.
Brennan is in this.
Oh yeah.
from like Private Benjamin,
for
and she's
like 2 seconds. Like you just see enough
and
for
she's
her to hook up.
ballsy, and she's just like in Gene Hackman's face. She's just like, oh, I'm about to fall down on the floor and have a heart attack. You're so scary. She's just all these amazing actors. I felt like everyone was straight out of the actor's studio or something. It was like in its heyday where it was all about the actor's truth, and that's why it feels like some of the scenes go on too long sometimes. But I'm just into it. I'm so jealous of it, and this sort of time where you just things breathe and you let it happen. And Hackman is so great. When Lionel comes in after he's been beat to a pulp and assaulted by, you know, Riley, who's like you said, Richard Lynch's guy. Uh, it's all, and he's sort of, and he's, and they haven't been friends. They haven't been like he's, he cut him off because he blames him for them being in jail. So he's like, you're on your own. But he calls Max. Max, and he's in the middle of the night. And the way Gene Hackman wakes up, first of all, is so good, just trying to figure out what's going on. And then he sees him across the room, and he gets on his glasses, and he puts on his shirt, and he walks over there, tells another guy to stay in bed, calm down. It's like a Cool Hand Luke kind of,
Yeah,
holding tank. And he goes over to him, and it's just the greatest. It's just weird ode to like friendship and understanding, and the ending is such a tragedy, and the whole mission goes awry, but you just can tell that Gene understands, like Gene's going to be there for him, and I don't know, I don't know why I love it so much, but it's some really fine laser like kinds of acting detail going on that I think is really works. You really know these people.
Yeah, as I was watching it, that's why I was like, well, this is so interesting, for somebody who's spent their life doing that. Like, yeah, it's so much of this isn't just like the story, because the story's minimal, of like what they're doing. It's scene to scene, they're doing specific things, but the overarching story is minimal. It's all just character work, and it's all moments with them, and
Yeah.
their weird dynamic. Like they're so polar opposites, but like watching them, like this weird, because Hackman is like so angry at everything coming down off the hill, and then like won't speak to him. Like Al, being the little kid that he is just excited to see another kid to play with, and like he wants to be best friends immediately, and Hackman wants nothing to do with him. So he's just like, they spend like a day not talking, just like ignoring each other, specifically Hackman, just trying to ignore him. And they get this ride, and by the time they get there, was like so fascinating. That scene in the diner is so amazing, because it's like within moments of them sitting down, it's not
They're
just
business
like
partners.
It's not just we're business partners. It's I've got enough money to get us started. It's already us. I've got, they are a team by the time they sit down and order breakfast. And I was like, that is
And you
such
see
a
it, yeah. And Hackman's like, clearly he's like, you're on your own in this life. It's a lonely life. You got to do it yourself. No one's there for you. And it's a fantasy. It's Milch was always big on that too. Like it's a fantasy that you think you're going to get through this life alone. We need other people. We need, in some way, there's someone else that you're going to have to rely on at some point for something, and we're better off for it. That we're part of a larger organism, and it just feels like we're seeing that played out on a macro scale with these guys.
Because he even says that. He's like, I don't need anybody. I don't love anybody. Like he says it, but even as he's saying it, like you've watched him like immediately just be attached to this guy, and like as
Like he wants to
many
take care of
faults as he has, this is probably not who you want as your business partner. But at the same time, I'm like, he didn't care. Like he immediately just attached himself to this guy as much of a cranky old bastard as he already was at that point. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's also very like the more I was watching it, it's such an American kind of a tale at that point. Like it was reminding me of all that stuff I've seen people. I got a very Easy Rider vibe out of it, and then I've seen people compare it to Of Mice and Men, and like
a lot of the reviews talked about those two movies in particular, and you've seen it before and better in those
Midnight
things.
Cowboy. It's very Midnight, especially as he's hurt by the end of it. It's very Midnight Cowboy too.
But it's just kind of, I don't know. Something's different about it for me. I had a real fantasy when I was in college of being like hopping a freight, and there was even a book, this underground book called The Freight Hopper's Manual, which I'm sure wouldn't work today with all the cameras and the electronics and the security and all that. But it was just like, this is how you do it, and this is what to look out for, and these are the best stops and the worst stops. And I was just like, man, someday I'm gonna hop a freight. And I'm gonna just travel this country. Um, but there's something about that appealed to me. I'm sure. Anne Wedgeworth needs a mention. She played Frenchie,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, who took a shine to Gene Hackman, and she's kind of Karen Blackish to me. Just as,
Oh yeah. Very.
you've seen her around, super sexy, super, but everything she did in the few scenes she has is like her, you know who that is. Like this is a defense mechanism. This is how I survive. I'm gonna cook for you, and then I burned everything, and we'll have to order KFC, and you know it's just
I
like
want to bring you the beer. Don't you bring him the beer. I want to bring him the beer. It's very
yeah,
calculated
you know
almost.
her. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know that lady. You've met that lady, and there's a sadness underneath, and there's a hunger and a fear and a desire for safety, and it's just like, the different ways in this movie that people are surviving is
Well, and Hackman's almost like, again, we wouldn't have known it in the 70s. Now I'm watching him, like he's almost on the spectrum. Like he's so, like as he's out there, like everything has its place. You have to put this here. He's very measured in how he wants everything. Then like his booklet he's carrying around of every dollar that he's mapped out. Like he's got everything where it has to be a certain way. And like is so angry when life doesn't go that way. And so you've got his friend being like, yeah, but that's not how it works. Like you just gotta, as we said earlier, you just gotta go with it and like make the best of your situation and make life work anyway. And he just wants to fight that along with everybody else in the world, really. But he's such a fascinating character because he's so specific in how he wants everything to happen.
yeah. And I think a lot of people feel Al's character's a little spectrum as well in a
Yeah, I
different
got that
way.
too. Yeah. But a different, well, that's kind of how the
And
spectrum
we
works.
didn't know
Everybody's so different.
we didn't know that
Yeah.
even possibility back in the day. We just thought this is the kind of person this person is. This is, we didn't know there might be other things.
But yeah, that whole finding yourself, that was, to me, that was also something that was so of this moment, that not just that they were making other movies similar, but just that 70s era brought with it that
Yeah.
whole, what is it to be an American and go and find yourself and go,
Yeah.
wander the land. Like it was something that I think was in the country at that time. That's why we got so many stories that were sort of like that. But that,
And
like,
and the failure of that
yeah.
dream, and also the tossing that mix, the sort of character driven style of all those movies in the 70s, Electra Glide in Blue and the movies you mentioned. And it was just a whole nother thing that people wanted. It was the birth of the anti-hero in a lot of ways. And the time they took with things, it's just, like Badlands is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, yeah.
I was going to suggest that one to you, but then I was like, it's not really underappreciated. I think a lot of people
It
appreciate that one.
eventually, yeah. I feel like it didn't used to be, and then I think like the last 10 years, I've heard more and more people reference it. So I think it found its audience.
But it's amazing. You watch a car drive down the road for like 3 minutes. It seems like, it's like, okay, we got it, and you know what the sensibility to do. Be like, oh my God, okay, we got it. Is anything going to happen in this movie? And you're like, it's just such a wonderful time to be an actor, I think.
Yeah, I think that's so much of this movie is like, it's not, like I said, it's not the plot. Like the plot is we're going to start this business, and that's way off at the end of the movie and you're thinking, but like everything that happens in between there is just character moments of them and like what weird things they do and how peculiar they are about every little thing. That, again, I don't know that anybody would write a movie like this now. It's so immersed in these guys.
It's almost, it's like we're just peeking in on them for a short period of time. And it's like you leave and you go, well, I wonder what's going to happen to those guys. I wonder where they ended up, because it's unresolved.
I definitely want to come back to the end. But yeah, that was kind of like trying to figure out what we're supposed to take from this. And like, if there was anything, I feel like my best attempt at like a takeaway is like, trying to find balance. It's sort of that golden mean of it all that like you see these two approaches to life and neither really work. But like they influence each other a little bit, and I guess is most successful with Gene Hackman. Like you see like through the entire movie, all he wants to do is just fight people. Like he's just angry all the time. But we finally get that last scene when they're together, and like he somehow avoids, you know, he starts to the point of you watch Gene Hackman do a striptease that you didn't know you needed to see, like, but there it is.
Like, here's another way out of this. I don't got to fight this guy. Let's just like, make a joke.
You taught me how to laugh. It's like, so that he finally rubbed off on him enough that like, I mean, we watched him. That's how they got in the work camp. He wanted to blame his friend, but like, it's him just being such a hardhead. He just wanted to fight anybody and do anything he could to cause problems. And like, he's his own worst enemy. But by the end, it's like, you see him like affected by what Al Pacino's kind of brought to him.
And, you know, neither of their plans was really working from the
jump.
No,
not really.
You know, so but it's also a very modern notion that there has to be some kind of lesson. There has to be some kind of moral here. What am I supposed to get out of this? And it's like, I don't know if that's another thing about the 70s movies that I liked so much. There's so much left up to me. It's like, there's something more poetic about it, where it's like, I'm not quite sure what's going on in this poem, but it's giving me a certain kind of feeling that I like. And boy, this one line, this one couplet sure resonates for me, and it's so beautiful, and it tells a story in a way that doesn't demand. And the lesson I'm trying to teach you with this film is this, you know. And it's like, well, why don't you just tell me that and save me 2 hours then? You know, I would rather have an experience, you know, than be taught a lesson, at least so blatantly.
Yeah, not hit you over the head with it. Yeah. Where this
Yeah.
just plants it in there and like, you got to find it really. It's like, unless you're willing to look for it, you're just like, by the end of the movie, it ends and if you're a normal moviegoer, you're just like, what? That's the end? Like, I can see so many people being frustrated by the way it ends. And I'm still a little perplexed sometimes, but
because it's just gone. You're like, does it get out of this fountain? You know, does it, you know?
When he's still like, Hackman's
What
still
does Gene do?
relatively angry. Like he's still just pounding on the counter of this poor woman. Like,
Yeah.
so he's still hostile, but we've seen a little improvement with him.
And life is fucking hard, you know?
Yeah. It's like you watch the once you go through the whole his baby mama situation, it's like that just sort of breaks him. And that was my other half of that scenario, is like you watch, you know, Hackman's always angry and it doesn't work. But, you know, Pacino's just, I'm going to be a clown. And like, but the clown is just the cover up. Like, you're not really, as much as, it gets you out of situations sometimes, but it also isn't dealing with any of the problems, really. And you see that, like, to the point of like, he spent so much time not dealing with his issues, so much so that he left, you know, he went to go sail on a ship just to get away from the reality of like, oh God, I got this girl pregnant. Like,
Yeah.
and then he comes back and he's faced with it, and like something snaps in his head. So you know, he so didn't deal with it that it broke his brain. Like,
there's so much to think about, you know. It's like you don't get to dictate how things go. You know, there's consequences for your actions. There's, you know, it's not a fairy tale, this life. You know, it would have been great if it did work out. And she's like, yeah, come on over and let's be a happy family again or whatever. But, you know,
that's not reality. That's not, I mean, she has right to be angry at him, you know. It's like, I get it. And like,
same with Badlands, you know. It's you know, you could break it down and be like, oh, this is about, you know, cult of personality, or, you know, the hunger for fame leading you to the, you know, and all that's in there, but it's just so much subtler, and it's so much more sort of just, you know, you get to learn these things by the little character, you know, details that are meted out to you over time, that you build this whole round, full 3D person, you know, by the end. And it's just a more fun way to tell stories, in my opinion.
Well, and it's subtle. Like, that was the only other sort of takeaway, is like, if it were totally grim, you know, you just see Gene go off and whatever, but we specifically get that line that it's a round trip ticket, that he's coming back. Like, we don't know how long it's going to take, like, if he's going to go try to make the business work, but like, we know in his mind, he's already like, I'm going to take care of you. I'll always make sure that you're taken care of, even if it's going to be a long stretch of time. We do feel like he's coming back. So yeah, I feel like that was another little takeaway too.
And I think and my ideas of what's possible change over the decades. When I first saw that movie, I was a different person than I am now, and now I've been through enough life where people I thought I would never lose, I've lost. Where, promises I've made, I've broken, and you're like, so maybe he doesn't come back. Maybe, there's other possibilities
Yeah.
to the story that change over time, which also I think is the kind of thing that is great. Like it's going to end the same way in, I don't know, Fast and the Furious or whatever. Like you know what that ending is, and we'll tell you what it is, and those are comforting. I'm not shitting on that movie. It's like different styles, it's genres, it's
Definitely. Yeah.
But if I'm gonna get challenged as an actor, it's gonna be in this kind of movie. It's gonna be in a show like Deadwood. It's gonna be in, it's just fun.
Speaking of the different styles, I was reading some of the behind the scenes that they didn't necessarily get along that great, just because they're both different in the way that they approach acting and this specific role. And
Gene and Al?
Gene and Al, yeah. So I think Al's later on in life was like, his quote was, "It wasn't the easiest working with Hackman, who I love as an actor, but I think they were kind of having a little bit of issues there." So it did make me want to ask, do you find that your style of acting and your preparation is different than other actors, and what's sort of the best way you found to kind of make it work, even though you're coming from different places?
Well, I totally get that, especially when it's two bulls like that. And in the time, again, it's wild to have done this so long. And look, I'm no Gene Hackman, I'm no Al Pacino in terms of the success I've achieved. But I've had a long life.
You're pretty good. Let me get it.
Well,
I've been nothing but impressed, I have to say.
I'm not afraid to act opposite to anybody. I've worked with plenty of Oscar winners and Oscar-winning movies, and I've been on stage with some greats, and I feel I've held my own. But when I came up, it was cutthroat. It was cutthroat. I never felt at school that people wanted me to be good. People want you to fail. They want to be the best one. They want to get the job. Who's up for this job? That guy's shit. I want to get this job. I loved going to, network tests and stuff in my 85 Camry and then driving off with the job, and in my mind, all the spoiled rich kids in their Beamers didn't get it, and I was like, ha, like, I got it. That's right. I'm going to get in my Camry and I'm going to drive this Camry onto the lot every day. Just this weird sort of, and I was grateful for it. As I got out of school, I was grateful for that. No one's going to help you. This is on you. It's up to you. I'm going to be good anyway, and that's helped me not be nervous for a lot of things. It's helped me feel like, I'm not going to break down because something's hard. There's a lot of good about it. But, I just did something with some young people. And I was talking to them about it, and I was like, it's wild to see, like, you guys all just like, oh, look at them supporting each other. Look at them.
What the hell?
like hoping they all succeed. It's sort of like, that's interesting, and it seems to be working all right for them. We seem to be making a pretty good movie. Because there's downsides to everything. You know what I mean? Like I know, I feel like someone. At least at one time, I never worked with anyone that I didn't leave wanting to work with me again. I knew that. Whether we did or not was another subject, but I felt like I pretty much feel like I can get along with about anybody. But I've had a few experiences now where my brand of taking a note or my doggedness about a scene comes across as very aggressive and very angry. To my shock, I'm not feeling that way.
Yeah, you don't mean it that way, but that's how
But
it's being
someone's come up
perceived.
to me at some point and been like, "You're just so angry all the time. I get scared to give." And I was just mortified
Hmm.
because, first of all, I'm a skinny little nerd who couldn't get a. It's not like I'm, you know,
But you're still carrying that around from the old
who the
days where
fuck am
they don't
I?
see that.
I'm just
Yeah.
trying to make this thing good, and this is how we've always done it. It looks like a fight, but it's not a fight. It's two people that really just want to make the best thing, but it feels like a fight to a newer generation, and I find that I have to really temper how I behave, and uh, it's 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 fun in a way. It's interesting, and it's also like eye-opening, and I'm like, oh my God, how long have I been coming across this way, or have I, I'm really examining all past behaviors, and do I joke around too much? Am I, I'm giving each other shit used to be a sort of creative
And a bonding
outlet.
thing, you know.
Yeah, and a way to
Yeah.
bond. And now it's like, oh no, that they'll take that seriously. If you gotta, and whatever, it's not bad to learn new things, but it is interesting. And this is sort of not a great answer to your question, but it is kind of like I wonder who didn't say anything over the years and who was like, I don't know, that guy's difficult. And in my mind, difficult just means you care about it.
I mean, I don't know that there really is an answer with moving forward anyway. It's like because you don't know how people are going to take things. And that is
Yeah.
something we kind of keep questioning on the show and in a lot of conversations now is like what with each of these, new generations, and I feel like the generations are shorter now. It used to be a 20-year block, and like now I feel like because the world is changing so fast and technology changes so fast, like I feel like a kid's experiences within a 10-year span at most is like you can already have a whole new experience with kids, 10 years later, if not sooner
Yeah,
than that. So
absolutely. And
I feel like they're taking things totally differently as a generation now.
well, I mean, and the way to avoid any problem at all is to be polite,
Yeah.
so, I can do that. I don't think my way is the best way, but I know it doesn't feel good to feel misjudged, and if I'm giving someone cause to feel some kind of way, what's that saying? People don't remember necessarily what you say, but they remember how you make them feel or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that people will remember, like, I didn't like being on set with that guy. I gotta,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, oh shit, I loved it. I thought we were having a blast. We made something really good. But I think I'm learning as I get older, like it's not just about the quality of the project as much as it is the experience. Like,
Yeah.
I think the experience needs to be fostered a little more in my approach. And I think the great thing you're striving for just might follow, you know?
And it does make you question too that how much of I'm all for people not being jerks to each other, so that should be a
Yeah.
given. But at the same time, like as you were talking about earlier in your career, like how much of it was built on trying, like the striving for it, and they like it is a competition, so that made you better because of it. Whereas if everybody gets along, like working together is good, but at the same time, like, does anybody rise to the occasion if nobody challenges them? There's a fine line there. That, like,
I think so. I mean, I look, I think standing ovations are a bit ubiquitous right now. Like, it doesn't mean anything if everyone's getting one. Like, if I'm going to get one because I showed up, then why work hard?
yeah, yeah,
But I do think there's a graceful way to pop in and out of that, to be just as, say your piece and then let go, or remember that I'm just part of this machine. I'm no more important than anybody else, but I never felt I was. But I think there's a certain kind of behavior on set that you got to guard against, particularly when you're really in love with a project or a character, or you feel like you have a handle on it. There's other cooks in this kitchen.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of back to that golden mean. It's like you need both. Like you need to take the lesson from the movie is like you need to, yes, be nice to people, but at the same time we have to have enough focus and competition to make everything we're working on better too. So it's finding that balance between both of those.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm hoping to get better at.
Yeah, it's all. I mean, we're all working
In
on
this
it.
last third. I wonder what'll happen.
You've still got a lot to do. I mean, you're
Yeah, man.
doing a lot of projects. You seem like you've got a lot of stuff in the fire there. So it's.
Well, I hope so. Lanterns comes out the 16th of August. I saw the first 4 episodes. I think it's excellent. Aaron Pierre's a real talent.
Definitely.
I love Kyle Chandler, and it's really good. So I'm excited to see what happens with the zeitgeist in this little thing.
Definitely. All right. Well, is there anything else? You said lanterns. Anything else you want to let people know is in the works, or anywhere to find you out there in the world?
Well, I think that's the most recent coming up. We'll talk again about other stuff later. I did a lot of indies this year, and I need to see if there will ever be a place that anyone can see.
Yeah.
I miss indies, man. I miss them having a venue.
Well, I mean, we're at a weird spot in time now because,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we are.
we just watched 2 super low budget horror movies completely take over the industry out of nowhere.
That's
So
right.
I'm wondering how much that's going to change things. Like, as much as they've been killing the mid-range budget movie, like, does this revitalize that whole concept again?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope people will seek them out, and find them. But that's the thing, there's a whole new gen coming up, and they're just as hungry, and they've never known this industry to be anything but what it is right now.
Yeah.
And if they're not daunted, then fuck it, maybe they'll hire an old man, and I think it's going to make some, we might all get paid a little less for a little while, but we might make some better movies. Tell you that, we might make some Scarecrow kind of movies.
Definitely. I mean, that's what you can do with these lower budgets, is have a little more artistic freedom, and you're not worried about the making back your millions right off the bat. And sometimes they accidentally do. So like, that's right. I think this is the most hopeful I think I've felt about movies in quite a while, actually, is watching that audiences returning to sit in a theater again. Like, that was amazing. Like, that was
what fun, huh?
Yeah, it's like we haven't seen that. That's amazing. So I'm glad we're immersed in it. Let's go with it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks for doing what you do, man. And thanks for talking.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing and picking this movie. It was a good reason to watch it, and it's an amazing film. But
well, thank you, man. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Otherwise, that about does it. Thanks for listening.
This episode is a production of Movie Meltdown, produced and edited by the Oddity Studios, with music written and performed by Andrea Davidson. For more on how to sponsor or support the show, email producer@moviemeltdown.com.